Hi guys, thank you for joining the live stream. Today we have Deep Halder and famous political commentator and controversial infamous political commentator Faiyaz Hossain with us. Deepda will join us soon, but thank you Faiyaz for joining our podcast.
Thank you so much.
So he's a political commentator of Bangladeshi descent based in Australia. For now, we are going to first start with Hindu Homeland. What do you think of the idea, Faiyaz?
I think it's an idea that has come with the practical elements that we see in Bangladesh, and we have been seeing for a long time that the people of from Hindu background have witnessed. As DNI Tulsi Gabbard stated, the chief of intelligence of America, that it's a long-standing concern. Now, with a long-standing concern, we need to bring up a long-standing solution, and an autonomous region for the minorities in Bangladesh is an inevitable consequence that we demand. However, is it very practical and is it very realistic? And is it something that the people of Bangladesh or the government of Bangladesh will expect from us to adhere to is the question. I personally think it would be an idealistic solution, but often in democracy, an idealistic solution may not be the appropriate solution that the country demands or the country prefers.
Hmm.
However, in my understanding of Bangladesh and what has happened to Hindus, this could be possibly one of the few or the only solutions that has been left for the remaining Hindus who have uh, felt the resilience, the trauma of a decade-long, or rather a 1,000 years-long history of persecution in their own homeland.
Hmm. Now, how much is it going to be allowed by China and USA, etc.? India and Bangladesh can deal amongst themselves. What do you think will be the other consequences?
You see, Bangladeshi politics has always been malfunctioned and penetrated by foreign powers.
Hmm.
And by foreign powers, some people in Bangladesh, they expect to believe that it's only India.
Hmm.
India, to a large extent, or possibly there were some border tensions that was alarming for both countries.
Hmm.
But apart from that, India has never been a matter of concern for any Bangladeshi.
Hmm.
India is not Bangladesh's competitor in any sector.
Hmm.
So India has largely been an ally. India was largely there as a partner for Bangladesh. But
Hmm.
Bangladesh uh, is a strategic location for many other countries like China and
Yeah.
USA.
Hmm.
And just like India, they don't think of Bangladesh in the same way that India might see Bangladesh as a partner
Hmm.
for strategic reasons, of course. For example, America has its own interest in the Bay of Bengal, possibly due to their Indo-Pacific strategy.
Hmm.
And China always has their own goals and agendas, and they use infrastructural progress or developments as a tool to negotiate for that. Now, of course, India may think about leveraging it for the betterment of Bangladeshi society, but other countries, of course, they will try to adhere to their own principles, and they will try to involve the UN and make other alternatives, which may not be viable. And that's what Bangladeshi people need to understand, that India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, they need to maintain their own geopolitical standards. They cannot rely on people from thousands of miles apart. Australia,
Hmm.
America, New Zealand, they will not decide the future of that nation. These people
Hmm.
need to think what is good for them, which unfortunately is not the case because they have too much influence socially, culturally, and politically over Bangladesh, at least.
Hmm. Do you personally believe that India interferes in Bangladesh too much, or does it at all?
I haven't seen any interference. For example, I'll tell you a notion. It was widely circulated in the society that India negatively interferes in Bangladesh's society,
Hmm.
and Bangladesh is under the control of Research and Analysis Wing, the RAW.
Hmm. Hmm.
But until Sheikh Hasina had to flee in exile in India, until now, the interim government could not produce one single evidence that Sheikh Hasina made this agreement and it is against international standards or it belittles the demand for the people of Bangladesh.
Hmm.
It belittles the demand of the people of Bangladesh. They couldn't
Hmm.
show one single agreement or MOU even. So
Hmm.
it shows that whatever treaties happened between India and other governments, it was for the
Hmm.
benefit of both the people. It was a win-win situation for
Right.
both. So I never think personally that India has any agenda that they will manufacture in any kind of trouble or diplomatic hurdle for Bangladesh. They have no such plan because Bangladesh is a neighbor. With due respect and with due credit needs to given to India that they have done so much for this nation from its birth. But
Hmm.
unfortunately, because of the misinformation and disinformation campaign led by a lot of people, the opposite spectrum has always been the opposite notion that India is our enemy and we are their enemy. This kind of notion, using religious theology, using a lot of other disinformation tactics, and often fueled by Western world,
Hmm.
it's taking place in Bangladesh regularly.
Hmm. Now, if at all the religious, the majority religious masses, the conservative masses of Bangladesh think that India is their enemy, I still understand because they have many other kinds of justifications as well. It's a Hindu majority state, it's a BJP run government, therefore it's a bad country right now, etc. Those they have those justifications. What I have seen that many upper middle class, upper class, well educated Bangladeshi celebrities also believe this, that India is somehow their enemy. India is the one doing all the interferences. Now, if at all India is doing the interferences, why do they always seem to be having no problem with Pakistan and China's interference and only have a problem with India, even the educated ones, even the quote unquote liberal ones?
Actually, what happened is there are multiple layers of things that has happened in the
Hmm.
geopolitical sector in Bangladesh. The
Hmm.
level of disinformation against Indian friendliness with Bangladesh has reached to a level that even
Hmm.
educated people, often even though they know the facts, they have to deny it or they have to play along to what
Hmm.
the messenger is saying for the sake of popularity. And now, because of
Hmm.
social media, people are a bit more scared to say the truth because revealing the truth might mean that you would be considered a raw agent and your followings on social media or your articles or your periodics will be viewed or read less because people will condemn you to an extent that they will think that you are not worthy because you are an agent of some other nation. So
Hmm.
because of that, they may have reached to a point where they would believe that it's better not to reveal the truth or it's better to misinterpret facts and play along with a kind of popular notion that people are believing, which is untrue, of course.
Hmm. Now, ever since Awami League's government fell, what have been the consequences on even people like yourself?
Yeah, for example, I used to write for a newspaper. It was Our Time BD and Doinik Amader Shoman. And the
Okay.
owner of the newspaper was Naimul Islam Khan. He was the press secretary to former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, Prime Minister in exile, I would say, not former Prime Minister because she has not
Yeah.
legally resigned.
Yeah.
So, in that essence, the newspaper was vandalized and burned and looted, and all our documentations and everything is gone overnight. And now
I
they
see.
even made sure that someone else is the editor of that newspaper. So,
I
for
see.
example, they're showing that that newspaper exists. Even the English newspaper is gone. The Bangla one
Hmm.
exists, but they
Okay.
made someone else the editor. So they changed the owner and everything. So they're
I
running the
see.
newspaper in the same name to show the world that, oh, this newspaper is running, but
Hmm.
it's actually being functioned and maintained by someone else. So there's
Hmm.
a change in management structure by the government.
Hmm. Now, if at all the Hindu homeland never happens, then what do
Yeah.
you think will be the consequences for the Hindus or the Buddhists and Christians of Bangladesh?
Yeah, the tribal minorities, the Chakma, the Garo, the
Yeah.
Hindus, the Christians, the
Hmm.
Buddhists,
Hmm.
and even the secular atheists, the Shias, the
Hmm.
Ahmadis,
Hmm.
they will all suffer. For example, as they say, there would be an election next year.
Hmm.
Prior to the election and aftermath of the election, you will see a trend of violence, just as you saw in other elections or in any change or in any disruption that Bangladesh ever faced.
Hmm.
Even with minute things or minute celebrations, you would
Hmm.
always see mob attacks and violence. And after the fall of the Awami League government, what happened was the mob lynching, the
Hmm.
arbitrary detention by both civilians and law enforcement
Yeah.
agencies have reached to a never-ending pinnacle that Bangladesh
Yeah.
never saw before. And often it has been justified by the interim government. They said they are not mobs, they are pressure groups. So it's been justified and acknowledged by them. So you can imagine if an election happens, what will happen? It will throw the country into a total chaos. And of course, the army, the police, the army especially has been very inactive. They have not been they had not been there for the people to protect its people. Regardless of any minority, the army must have been there to protect them and to uh, lead a movement against the mobs. Verbally, they have been, but practically, they have been very weak, and they have not been up to the task. And it makes you question that if there is a major crisis in the country where the army needs to lead, what would they do if they cannot simply contain its people for simple mob lynching?
Should the Hindu homeland be just a piece of land that's annexed or invaded by India? Shouldn't India go that route as well to save the minorities of that country?
Look, when we consider about, for example, a homeland, or when we think about an autonomous region, for example, I would say in the Philippines, they have an autonomous region, a separate homeland for the Muslims, which is called the in Mindanao, they have the Bangsamoro homeland for the, especially for the Muslims, where they allow them administrative access, allow their people to run the police and stuff. And then in other countries as well, in China, they have homeland for Tibet, they have homeland for Xinjiang Muslims of Uyghur community. In Russia as well, and what happens is within this homeland, the central government maintains them, but some administrative rights are given to these people so that their culture can prevail. And that is what is ideal. That is what would be ideal if it was done in 1971 or after. But now, currently, the situation has escalated to a level, and the animosity has reached to a level, and who knows what kind of intervention is required right now. Now, I would like to say one thing, that UN had been very, very, very sluggish in matters of Hindu genocides and atrocities and persecution. They have been
Yeah.
very sluggish, and that's one of the reasons that Bangladesh was able to leverage into such an extent over these casualties, and they have turned a blind eye to these events.
When has UN ever been effective for for anyone?
Yeah,
Right now,
they have been
yeah, go
effective
on.
only in terms of Palestine. They have been very vocal about Palestine, of course.
Yeah,
But when
yeah,
it
they have
comes
been
to
vocal.
when it comes to Arabs killed by Arabs, for example, Yemenis
Yeah,
killing Arabs, yeah,
yeah,
or when it comes to, for example, Sudani Arabs being killed by other Arabs, they have not been
yeah,
vocal. But when
yeah,
it's about Israelis killing Arabs, they have been extra vocal, because that's where the funding, the media attention, and everything lies. So because it's
yeah,
Jews versus Muslims, so
yeah.
in that state of attention, of course, the UN is active. But in other aspects of the spectrum, UN is very passive and sluggish, and that's what we see in context of Bangladesh.
Now, this topic of funding reminds me, you are probably one of those people who get called India's agent and stuff, right? That you get paid by India or raw.
Of course, it's a very rhetorical aspect in Bangladesh, and people don't need any proof. They don't need to check your bank statement. They would imagine and make this kind of allegations against anyone. For example, I've never met someone from Raw, or I've never met an high-end Indian politician for my sake. But of course, I would love to meet politicians from India, or academics from India, and journalists from India. But if meeting people from India makes me a Raw agent, of course, then why not? They don't call me an agent
Yeah,
of Australia or something, because I live
yeah,
here and I know a lot of people from here, even
yeah,
politicians. But they
yeah.
wouldn't do that. But just because maybe I have certain point of view that uh, is not very common in Bangladesh, therefore they would sideline me into that extreme, and just try not to debate with me, and just try not to have a dialogue with me, and
Yeah.
consider me an outlaw, because calling me a raw agent is the simpler option.
Now, among those people who call you an agent of a country, or get accuse you of getting paid by other countries, a lot of them probably do get funding from other countries, right?
I wouldn't be like them, but actually, some people that I know personally, they have no connection with any government, but they think like
No, I
that.
mean the people who are accusing people like you, they also
Yeah,
get funding,
and
right?
even some people, like my classmates, also accuse me of such when I had diverse views compared to them,
Yeah,
divergent views.
yeah,
I wouldn't say they have they are funded by someone, but I would say they are very ill informed and they have no very limited geopolitical and religious knowledge, and they don't want to learn because they want to learn things that can give them generate money, but they don't want to learn
Yeah.
anything for humanitarian sake. So
Hmm.
anyone who talks about humanity, or for that instance, they are. But yeah, apart from that, there are other people on YouTube who are quite famous, and they brand anyone as raw agent. For example, Chinmay Krishna Das was branded as a raw
Hmm.
agent and stuff, and they said
Yeah.
that ISKCON was a terrorist organization and such.
Hmm. Hmm.
So they use these tactics globally or even anywhere they can, just to sideline or ridicule a group of people who is who is different from them. So in
Yeah.
that essence, maybe some of them have connection with other agencies, or they have
Hmm.
a proximity or some kind of alliance with them.
Hmm. Now, the people who have for decades created this anti-India narrative in Bangladesh, have they done that with their own money or with someone else's money, China or Pakistan and stuff? Deepda is here. Hello, Deepda.
Hi, Devda.
Deepda, you are muted.
Yeah.
ইয়া দীপদা
Hi.
দীপদা ক্যামেরাটা একটু আর একটু সাইড
Hi.
করতে হবে, তোমার মুখটা একটু মাঝামাঝি আনার চেষ্টা করো। ওয়েট, লেট দীপদা ফিক্স হিজ ক্যামেরা। আর একটু আসতে পারলে ভালো হয়, দেখো তুমি একটু সাইড ঘেসে আছো।
হ্যাঁ, দাঁড়া।
হ্যাঁ, ঠিক আছে।
ঠিক আছে।
তো yeah, Faiyaz,
Yeah.
who has funded that anti-India narrative for all these decades in Bangladesh?
Okay, I'll just give a starting point. For example,
Yeah.
if you know Maulana Abdul Hamid Khan Bhashani.
Hmm.
So Maulana Abdul Hamid Khan Bashani was once a leader of the Awami League, and he had a level of popularity in Bangladesh. But in spite of him being alive, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman became the independence leader. One of the reason was that Maulana Bhashani chose to side with Ayub Khan. He once changed his political narrative, and he said that it's better not to criticize Ayub Khan, or not to uh, ridicule him, or not to criticize his policies. And he even went to China, and he was told by the Chinese government at that time not to be against Ayub Khan. And so he came back, and for a few years he was off the go. Now, what does it say? Why did he go to China, and why didn't he criticize, or as a political activist, not be against Ayub Khan? It obviously means that he had some kind of a negotiation, whether that is monetary or whether it is something else, whether that is out of fear or out of gain.
Yeah.
He had some kind of an opportunity which he leveraged. Now, of
Hmm.
course, people who assume that he was a hero, then of course those people can have the same. If they have the same opportunity, they will catch it up. They will take it with
Hmm.
open hands. So that's one
Hmm.
of the reason. And other, for example, Lakshar-e-Taiba said that they had a stake in the July uprising. Now, of course, Lakshar-e-Taiba will not operate alone inside Bangladesh. They will operate through ISI.
Hmm.
And of course, certain madrasas and certain people from madrasas, they told me
Hmm.
back in Bangladesh that sometimes Pakistani individuals often come to the madrasa to train them, to provide them certain leverages, like even financial leverages,
Hmm.
which occur. They told me in personal testimonies, and
Hmm.
prefer to be unnamed. And now
Hmm.
these things are quite commonly known in
Hmm.
Bangladesh, and therefore it is very much possible that a lot of people, they have financial opportunities. When they will have it, they will leverage it.
Hmm. And what about the academics and stuff? Academics who are staunchly anti-India, the liberals of Bangladesh who are even now denying that any Hindu genocide or the long-term genocide has ever happened in Bangladesh.
You see, the problem with academicians in our context is they are very underpaid,
Hmm.
and for research they need funding.
Hmm.
Sometimes to the extent that to receive funding, they can do anything. Yeah.
Hmm.
So, Dr. Asif Nazrul, the current law minister, the law advisor of
Hmm.
Bangladesh, he
Hmm.
was someone very close to the Awami League regime
Okay.
once upon a time. He
Okay.
was close to a lady called Jahanara Imam, and he used
Okay.
to write articles criticizing the Jamaat Islamis and the war criminals.
I see.
But things have changed after maybe 2000, 2010. After 2010, things have changed. Now,
I see.
I questioned about it to a lot of other people, other people like from his colleagues, and they told me that Asif Nazrul received some privileges and funding to study his PhD in UK,
I
and
see.
because of that, when he returned, his policies, his understanding,
I
his
see.
research completely
Exactly.
overturned. Yeah,
Hmm.
so you don't usually see a researcher completely overturning their research,
Hmm.
no matter which field they are. They have certain principles, and they have a goal, and they have a road. Now
Hmm.
with Asif Nozrul and others, these things were seen. So you can see a pattern. You can sense a pattern over there.
Hmm. Now, then the common masses who are either soft sympathizers of Islamism or people who are directly involved in it, who will do the riots and stuff, those people who honestly in their hearts believe that people like you take money from India, don't they know that their side and many people seemingly on their side also take money from other countries? Or do they just ignore that deliberately?
There is no problem if someone takes money from Pakistan or China.
I see.
The only problem is India. Even
Okay.
if I eat food at a Gujarati restaurant, I might be called a raw agent, Yeah. But if you take money from China, no problem. If you give China Tista River Management Project, no problem. But with India, if you have any kind of trade deal, or if you go to India regularly or something, there is something fishy in you. That's the Bangladeshi perspective, unfortunately.
Now, the love for Pakistan also, I understand it's perhaps because of Islam. I guess definitely because of Islam. But why the love for China then? And especially with their actions against Uyghur Muslims.
I don't think there is a special love for Pakistan because of Islam. Because Bangladeshi
Okay.
people, as they think that all Muslims are their brothers, they have the same love for Palestinians,
Hmm.
Saudis, and everyone, unequivocally. For
Right.
Pakistan, there is a special love because of Pakistan is anti-Indian. For example, a lot of Bangladeshis used to love the Talibans. When Talibans declared victory against USA and against the government
Yeah.
that fell, they
Hmm.
cheered on social media and everywhere. And that time, Awami League was in power. So I asked some of them what is the reason, and they said that our Muslims are establishing an Islamic emirate. They will implement Sharia,
Yeah.
and even people who don't have beard, they look very normal. And people who don't,
Hmm.
they party and chill, and they're like, they look like you and me. They were very happy as well. But recently, after the Operation Sindoor, some of them said that the Afghan Talibans, they are no longer Muslims because they have sided with
Hmm.
India, or they have not directly sided with Pakistan in the Operation
Hmm.
Sindoor, and therefore
Hmm.
the Afghanis who did jihad for so long, they have lost their iman.
Hmm.
So
Then
that's
why
the
the love for China, especially after their with their actions against Uyghur Muslims? Are they blind to that, or do they
they,
not
they
know
don't
that?
really care what is happening to Uyghur Muslims. They don't have any issue with that because the Uyghur culture is not very popularly demonstrated in Bangladeshi media or any other
Right.
media. So they don't.
Right.
Many of them don't even know what Uyghur is, and many of them think it's a conspiracy theory or something. But with
Okay.
China, despite China being atheist, why they like
Hmm.
China is that China has a problem with India.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a
Deepda.
good point, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. Go
Hmm.
ahead.
No. It's a very interesting point, because to say that Bangladesh's hatred for India stems only from religiosity is not really correct. I mean, it's more nuanced than that. So
Okay.
anybody who in some way is anti-India is loved by Bangladesh. Bangladeshis.
Hmm.
yeah,
Bangladesh is, I mean,
Bangladeshis.
the
Hmm.
government, of course, can have a different, yeah, Bangladesh, large chunk of Bangladeshis. So anybody who can, who can demonstrate strength against India, or who can damage India, is embraced by, the idea of that nation is embraced by Bangladesh, and it's not because of religion, not just
Hmm.
because of religion. And there are, yeah, in fact, on this point, I won't harp too much, because I don't know whether Fayaz told you he's the lead researcher of my new book.
I
So
see.
I
Oh,
mean,
yes,
I'm
yes. You
trying,
had told me
yeah, I'm
about
trying.
him.
Yes, he's the lead researcher. I mean, a huge help he's been giving me.
Okay.
But I haven't discussed this with him. But there's a chapter I want to explore in my book, which will be titled "Why Do I'm saying it in your podcast." So I
Okay.
think I have thought of a chapter called why do Bangladeshis hate India? Okay, and that would look at historically what were the reasons. Suddenly, why did it go
Hmm.
from, you know, there never was a lot of love for India for some reason. Even if you look at it historically, there were only a certain section of people who sort of bought this idea of, so the sort of India's help for 71 war, but
Hmm.
that started getting diluted very soon. And even during the Army League times, when which is the time and last leg of the Army League government
Hmm.
in Bangladesh, when I used to be a frequent visitor, I
Hmm.
saw that beyond very, very sort of, the very how would I, how do I put it? Very, very manicured spaces. There
Yeah.
would uh, there would be a sense of India which is not a happy sense. So
Hmm.
it's very interesting, and it's not just a Hindu Muslim thing.
Yeah.
It runs deeper than that, and there are. Perhaps there is need for India also to do some introspection on this. It's not
Okay.
just, I mean, if you have to look at it objectively, I think India also needs to sort of certain things that do not go well with at least the youth of Bangladesh anymore. I think those are very,
Hmm.
very important points which are glossed over. I mean, I said I won't say, but since it's your podcast, one thing is, like, I think Fayaz will agree, border killings. There has been a certain callousness about Bangladeshis at the border. While I always believe that there should be very strict rules at the border, people should not just walk over, which is a problem with India. People just walk into India. But how you
Yeah.
deal with people who walk into your country or stealthily come inside your country also says
Hmm.
something about you, right? Like, for instance, there is now a sort of a debate with inside America and also outside, that do you really call them aliens, like Donald Trump is
Hmm.
saying? I mean, call them illegal immigrants, that's bad enough, right? Do
Hmm.
you need to really put them in chains? These are debates
Hmm.
that are coming up, right? And
Yeah.
Indians are also facing the brunt of that. I mean, ICE has caught them. They're being sent back
Hmm.
in a plane. You don't need to sort of cuff them and put chains in them. So it's because it somewhere affects you, and then some of us try to justify it, saying, oh, they do it to anybody they arrest. For all of that is fine.
Hmm.
It does hurt you somewhere, right? It does.
Hmm.
At least for some people, it affects you. That why is the Indian being treated like that? Okay, he should not have done what he did, but why is he sent back like this? He's not. I mean, he's unarmed. He's under sort of he's surrounded by law enforcement authorities,
Hmm.
and he's being literally dragged. So out, but I was debating with the idea, and then Hasina government fell. But
Hmm.
it's something that it's one of the many reasons which has uh, which has affected over down the years the like this. So
Hmm.
you see, the thing is, in no event today, Nirajan, you must understand, is local. There's nothing called local. Something
Hmm.
happens somewhere, and somebody
Yeah.
puts it up, right, as a tweet, as a video, and it's global, right? Every
Hmm.
local event, if it somehow goes online, is global. So
Hmm.
something happening somewhere is not an isolated incident. So while on the face of it, Sheikh Hasina and Prime Minister Modi had great camaraderie, and India, Bangladesh had great equations. There was a strong dislike for India over very simple incidents. And
Hmm.
from our side, we do and we should
Hmm.
do that. Why is Bangladesh celebrating whoever is whoever is beating India? But at the same time, we need to also see this always, uh, always beyond criticism. So I think that's something we had to
Hmm.
also look. But now it's a different situation altogether. Now, I mean, there's clear animosity
Yeah.
between two countries, and
Yeah.
but I think before that also there is something, because it's something that has stayed with me since Hasina's time, since 2023. 2022, in fact. 2021 the incident happened, but since 2020, so it's not just religion, it's a very deeper psychological reasons which have fueled India hate in Bangladesh.
Hmm.
Like what
Deepda,
he was saying, na, Fayaz.
is there any way to fix your internet a bit?
Yeah, tell me. Yeah, I'm just try.
Fixing the
Is it
internet
very bad?
Most of the words are
So
breaking up or coming 3 seconds, 4 seconds later
later.
after
Yeah.
your mouth is moving.
is it better now?
Uh, right now it's better.
Okay.
Let's continue then.
So, like
Yeah,
for
go ahead.
instance, the
Yeah.
the cricket match incident, for instance,
Hmm.
some of the things that some of our leaders say, they don't go well, and they are circulated, sort of mass circulated across Bangladeshi WhatsApp users, their Facebook, their
Yeah.
Twitter. Twitter is, they're not so big on Twitter, mostly on Facebook.
Hmm.
They're very big on
Facebook.
Hmm.
Facebook and TikTok. So it's not so. Of course, there is Hindu hate, which is very
Hmm.
evident now. But
Hmm.
even in the good years of Sheikh Hasina and Modi camaraderie, there was with this very uneasy. Yeah, what I was trying to say was, this whole thing about raw, and this is something
Hmm.
I I heard and I sort of saw people talking there. There was this sense that raw is everywhere, and the fact is it wasn't. I mean,
Hmm.
but am I right, Faz? But there was a sense in
Of course,
Bangladesh, oh,
it
raw is
wasn't.
dictating everything. I mean, you'd be surprised that Bangladeshi politicians and the Army League and whatever, even otherwise, they would just brag, oh, I have raw backing. And it was so funny. People would just
Hmm.
make a India tour, go to Delhi, I think shop from Palika Bazaar or wherever, some mall, and come back and say that I've met raw, and this became an election issue. I mean, one election I covered, there's a particular constituency where Borishal 3, where this thing was so openly talked about. I thought it's a joke that, oh, Roy is I said, really, Roy is controlling constituencies. So when the electorate hears such things, it doesn't go down well with them.
Hmm.
Much it was true or not, it's not something that goes down well. I mean, it's not something that goes down well in India also. No? Suppose there is an election, you think that local election, you think somebody outside is controlling, right?
Hmm.
As citizens, you will get very pissed that why is this happening? So all of
Hmm.
this clubbed together contributed to India hate down the
Hmm.
years.
Hmm. Faiz, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, of course. I will add something. For example, when Modi ji won the election in 2014,
Hmm.
some people or a lot of people in BNP, they cheered for it because they thought that Pranab Mukherjee was behind Sheikh Hasina's backing in the power, and they thought Modi will be anti-Hasina, and then BNP can get leverage out of it.
Yeah.
I see.
To the extent that I was there in front of BNP's office, and they were distributing sweets to the people, and the reason was that Modi ji won the election.
I see.
So, but they had expected that after the 2014 election, BNP will get some leverage or help from India.
Hmm.
But however, it was not the case because Indian foreign policy, I would say, is not doesn't change drastically.
Hmm. Yeah.
They have all throughout the world, and often sometimes, as we saw after Operation Sindhu, India maintained cohesive foreign policy even with
Yeah.
o- other political parties.
Yeah.
So, unlike Bangladesh, India is a bit more professional in foreign policy.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
therefore, it didn't happen, and so that was one of the reason why they were heartbroken
Hmm.
because they thought that Awami League has a historic relationship with the Congress. Maybe the historic relationship will lend into some glitches with BJP.
Hmm.
But since it didn't, and as Deepda said, that Awami League itself cheered for it. They said, "Look, BJP is supporting us, so we have BJP." Some of them in the local level. I don't
Yeah.
know if in the central level they wouldn't, but as Deepda said in Barishal and other parts, some Awami League leaders or some Chhatra League leaders, they used to brag about it that I have people in India. I know these guys in India. I know Nisit Pramanik.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
yeah. Some people used to take pictures with Nisit Pramanik and say we know him. And some
Hmm.
people used to say that he's from Gaibandha, Bangladesh. And there was an
I
issue
see.
with that
Yeah.
as well.
I
So
see.
this used to be a continuation, and of course, the people are observing. So people actually think that there is something like that going on. And as I talked about disinformation, Asif Nazrul, the current law advisor, he stated that there are 26 lakhs Indians working in Bangladesh.
Okay.
And when at that time he said that some newspapers or some of his research say it, but after he came to power, he was asked about it and he denied it and said that no, at that time I was wrong.
I see.
But at that time, people thought of him as a saint and thought that this is actually
Okay.
true. So some people they told me that even in Prime Minister's office, a lot of Indians are working, but we don't know them. Yeah. So and they expected that after the fall of the Sheikh Hasina's government, a lot of Indians would be arrested from the Prime Minister's office and
Yeah.
Rashtrapati Bhavan and other places. But
Hmm.
clearly that was not the case, and now they have learned about it that those were disinformation. The current foreign affairs advisor, Tawheed Hossain, he said that there is $5 lakh remittance going to India uh, from Bangladesh on a monthly basis. Yeah, and of course it was disinformation. So similar disinformation was used as a token in a lot of times. But there is another reason why some people don't like India. That is that some people think that India is never a good opportunity for them. So Bangladeshi people, a lot of them, they want to go abroad and they want to gain citizenship in that country. For example, they do a lot of it in America. So a lot of people from places in Chittagong or Feni, they will go to America by boat.
I see.
They will go to Italy through Libya by boat, and they would risk their life to reach there. And like Shah Rukh Khan had a movie on it. If you saw it, they do the same thing. They go by boat. They travel for 2-3 months, and they somehow reach America. They
Donkey.
go by fishing boats as well. They call
Yeah.
it dongi or something. And they don't have that opportunity in India. Like they cannot go to India and work and change their life. So that's one of the reasons why they are less critical about China or America, even though a lot of Bangladeshis, they hate America for what America has done to Iraq, Syria, or Palestine and everything. But they wouldn't say much because they have a dream of going to America.
I see.
So,
Okay.
so the hatred gets minimized or gets diluted or depreciated for economic opportunities. But in India's case, for example, when the Bangladeshis, they come to Australia, the first job most of them have is at an Indian restaurant.
Oh. Okay.
When they come, they will not be able to get a job even before they have tax papers and everything. They will go to an Indian restaurant and tell them, I'm from Bangladesh, I need an opportunity, and they will be gracious enough to say, okay, you can work here as a waiter or as a kitchen assistant or an assistant chef. They will be gracious, but they will take that opportunity. But after working, they will say, oh, this Indian owner is bad, they're strict, they're harsh, I hate Indians and stuff. That is also common. So economic opportunity is an important factor here as well. Which a lot of people don't see it because in Europe, in America, in Canada, they will have foreign policy issues, they will have religious differences, they will have a lot of things that they hate about them and their culture, but they will still accept it for the sake of economic emancipation and opportunities, which unfortunately they don't find it or see it in India. Therefore, it's easier for them to criticize India and bring it all out using disinformation, misinformation, manipulation, or anything possible for them.
Dibda, before I ask you about the Homeland issue, I'll have to ask you one other question, which I asked Faiyaz as well. That it's not just the poor, impoverished masses of Bangladesh who are the Islamists or who just hate India, even for non-religious reasons. It's even people like Armin Musa, famous, world-famous Bangladeshi singer. She's friends with Srijit Mukherjee, and they had a sort of strongly worded, rude tone confrontation on Facebook when the Bangladeshi Hindu genocide was going on. And Srijit took India side and Hindu side and stuff, and Armin Musa was trying to deny it or defend it. So why are people like even her also so convinced that India is the only enemy here, not Pakistan, China, etc.? And so therefore, my question is: you were saying that India must do some retrospection or at least self reflection. Should we do that and come to the conclusion that we should have been more involved in Bangladesh and we actually should have set raw upon Bangladesh and changed the narrative? Because we did not get involved and the narrative shifted us against us anyway. So shouldn't we have infiltrated their academia and funded their stuff and done a pro-India propaganda. Why
I
didn't
think
we do it?
that's a debate, the academia bit, whether you should have pushed for a certain kind of, especially after the rise of Modi in India, you got the mandate, the mandate, the kind of mandate he got. In the past 10 years, you should have pushed your academia not just in Bangladesh but in other parts of the world also, like like
Hmm.
other very strong lobbies
Hmm.
in America, for instance, the Jewish lobby, the
Hmm.
Chinese lobby, the
Yeah,
Indian lobby,
everyone has a lobby except India.
except India. So it's not just Bangladesh, which is like right here.
Hmm.
But to come back to your specific question, I think Bangladesh. I don't know what percent it would be. Like if you go to Dhaka, there's a bubble. Okay,
Hmm.
like there are these. I keep saying there are these 5 places in Dhaka. Okay, Gulshan 1, Gulshan 2, Banani, Baridhara, Dhanmundi. Now,
Hmm.
if you there are these singers, songwriters, film actors, directors, okay, writers, intellectuals who are a very influential set. Now that happens in other South Asian countries also. It's there, for instance, in Pakistan. It's in
Yeah.
India also, but in India,
Hmm.
it's a much bigger percentage
Yes.
of people, not so small.
Yeah.
Now, for this
Yeah.
percentage of people, let me tell you, I have had the opportunity to meet some of them, not many, not all of them. They actually stay in a bubble. Okay,
Hmm.
they have no idea what's happening in their countryside. Okay, so
Hmm.
I mean, I don't know, they read
I
their
see.
papers. It's not covered very well all the time. Like this,
Hmm.
there is this the attack on Hindus, right?
Hmm.
So it's when I was writing my book, for instance, and if you remember, it came out uh, almost 6 months before, more than 6 months before Hasina government fell, right? Being in Bangladesh, like when I told them I was writing this book, they knew there's some kind of social fissure, and yes, there's some attacks that happen every once in a while. But they said, okay, is this a book really? Is there enough material
Hmm.
for a book? Okay,
Yeah.
because they stains. I think it's a they shut their mind off to the reality of Bangladesh, and it's not just about minorities. I was talking to somebody from the academia who told me that it's very interesting that from 2013 till now 2025, okay, the number of she said that Dhaka was a very different city. Okay, Dhaka was large swaths of Dhaka was very liberal, very cosmopolitan.
Okay.
Said now in every lane you will find a madrasa, and she squarely blamed Sheikh Hasina for it. The deal she cut with Hifazat Islam. He said every lane has a madrasa. He said, these were problems of the countryside, but now, there is so much open religiosity. And this is, she was talking about a time before the fall of Hasina. Okay. And now, of course, it's
Hmm.
up in out there in the open, the
Hmm.
radicalism. But she said, even before that, people could see it, but they chose to unsee it. You know, I did an interview there on the print website, in our YouTube channel, with a gentleman called Oliur's son. Okay, who's a queer rights activist, a human rights activist. Okay, and I did an interview with him, Bangladeshi, and she was a model, but she's now also an actress. Asma ul Hassan Brishti, okay,
Okay.
who's who has a sort of a dark skin color, and both of us saying how difficult it is to be them individually, okay, to be a girl who's not fair in Bangladeshi society, to be dark in fact, and to be a
Hmm.
person who fights for queer rights, okay.
I
So I
see.
said, so that was my question, that what is the percentage of
Hmm.
people like you who can be themselves in Dhaka? He said it's
Hmm.
0.1%, 0.2%. You get what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So for
Hmm.
this percentage of people, they have rooftop parties, they do drugs, they're drinking, and it's not something that's prohibited. Drinking is not, I mean, it's prohibited in most places, right? Except in few spaces.
Hmm. Hmm.
So they have swingers parties. There's a very interesting book called The Inheritors, which a novel written by a
I
Bangladeshi, which
see.
dealt with that. For
Oh.
them, they kind of shut their eyes to what's happening in the rest of the country. Not this time, not after the July quote unquote revolution. Now, so it's there on the streets. So I think
Hmm.
for them, they did not even They know, but they pretend as if it doesn't happen. Okay, which is what they told me, that is there really a book? I mean, what will you write? It's how many chapters are there? What will you write from one page to the other? It can be an essay. Can it really be a book? And it was a book. So it's not as if they hate Hindus, or they are sort of
Yeah, yeah.
because their curiosity is also very diluted. Okay, for most things. I mean, it's not as they're not ex-Muslims or anything, but very sort of, yeah, there's a sense of cultural sense of being Muslim, maybe a little bit of religious sense of, but it's not like a hard push towards religiosity. But even for them, because the world around them was so different, so they maintained this little cozy corner for themselves within Dhaka. Okay, so where they kind of shut out the world. It's a very interesting psychological phenomena to see that people can be so, I won't really say blind, but oblivious, really, to what's happening around them. And
Now,
these are very, very
Faya, yeah,
influential
yeah,
people,
go ahead.
very influential. No, I
Right.
just only that they're very influential in terms of culturally, socially. They are what many others want to be.
Now, Fayaz, right before we went online, you were mentioning something fascinating, that how garment factories have increased the demand for madrasas. Could you shed some light upon that?
Yeah, but recently the education minister, barrister Mohibul Hassan Chaudhry Naufal, he came on an interview at a YouTube channel, and he stated that Bangladeshi madrasas have a positive correlation with women empowerment. Now, during Sheikh Hasina's time, she started the women empowerment officially. And what
Okay.
happened was garments factories, they were recruiting a lot of women. And a lot of these women were divorced, single moms. And some of them had families, but their like husbands were living abroad, or husbands were living in another part of Bangladesh, or husband was living with them and also working. So what happened was they had no one to take care of their children. So because they had no one to take care of the children, uh, they had to put in their children to the madrasa. Madrasa was their sole option left, because all the garments factories were not according to the compliance with international
Yeah,
standards. They would have sufficient daycare for 20, 30,000 people, you know,
yeah.
because a lot of garments factories, the big ones, they had 20, 30,000 workers working, and most of them are ladies. So at the worker level, maybe the managerial level, there's a lot of men, and men are dominating. So I personally worked in the garment sector as well, and I saw it personally that
I
garments
see.
owners, they fund these madrasas, and
Oh.
the people who work, the women who work, their children, they go to those madrasas because of the lacking the daycare facilities. Now, on one hand, Sheikh Hasina was influencing them to open garments factories, and she was trying her best to leverage garments orders globally. And India, with some of the contracts, they also supported Bangladeshi garments industry to blossom. But there was an underlying factor going on that their children are going to the madrasa. And within these 10, 15 years, the madrasa education system, uh, it was from the beginning. It followed the Darul Ulum Deoband, the Qawmi Madrasa, following the madrasa in Deoband. And they had a system. For example, they will start with memorizing the Quran, and then their entire curriculum is about memorizing. It doesn't
Yeah.
develop analytical evaluation. So a madrasa student will tell you that I believe this because it's written in the Quran or it's written in the Hadith. Why,
Yeah.
how, why? No philosophical understanding. Yeah. So it's about the mullah said this to me, I will obey. Yeah. But it's not about why should I obey? How is it? What's the context? They will not analyze so much. So because of that, these people they go into the brainwashing narrative. Now, what Sheikh Hasina did in 2018 is she saw that in last 7, 8 years there is too many madrasas going around. She figured it out herself, and then she thought that she needs to give this madrasa some accreditation so that she can bring them to the mainstream, and then they can get jobs and stuff after more advanced training. Now, what it did was it leveraged her for the election, but then these madrasa people, they were coming out to coaching centers, they were learning English, they were preparing for admission tests, and there they had a stronger connection with Jamaat Islami, because Jamaat Islami people are not in the madrasa, they are in the educational institutions. Now they saw that the madrasa students are coming and they are naive. They are people who can memorize well, but they are not people with analytical mind. And
I
Jamatis
see.
have comparatively better analytical mind. And so they targeted these individuals. And then that's why in August 5th, you will see that it was
Yeah.
also a correlation or a coalition between Jamaat and Deobandis. Traditionally, Deobandis and Jamaat, they are not of the same doctrine. They follow the same Hanafi madhab, which is the jurisprudence, but in their interpretation and understanding, it's very different, to the extent that some of them call the Jamaat's founder Abu Ala Maududi a heretic because he insulted some of the companions of Prophet Muhammad. So, in that essence, it was really a miracle to bring these two forces together. And that led to another thing. Recently, in an interview with Khaled Mohiuddin, he's a journalist, one of the Deobandi cleric, and he's also a peer of Chormonai Peer, Fazlul Karim, Said Fazlul Karim from Borishal as well. He's the president of Islamic Andolan Bangladesh, a political party.
Okay.
He said that when he comes to power, he will implement Islamic Sharia like Afghanistan, like Taliban's. And he wants to have a country like Iran. Now, he is also running the election. Till now, their plan is to run together with Jamaat Islami. So, yeah, another thing I would like to add that Islamic
Yeah.
theology also brings a point to Hindu hatred because of the Abrahamic faith. Prophet Abraham, he destroyed idols in the Arabian Peninsula.
Yeah.
Khalid bin Walid, the companion of the Prophet Muhammad, he broke some idols like in Allah, Uzza, Manat, Dil Khalasa in Arabian
Yeah.
Peninsula during the time of Prophet and after that. So these narrations exist in the Hadith and also some of them in the Quran. So they bring out a leverage and incite people to think that destruction of idols is a good thing. And also, for example, the Quran considers Christians and Jews as people of the book. So many scholars refer it, and they say that it's allowed for a Muslim to marry a Christian or a Jew. But
Yeah.
in the context of Hindus, they consider them idol worshippers. The same people the Prophet fought in Makkah and Medina.
Yeah.
The same idols were broken, but just that geographically these idols are different, and they have a different name, like they have different scriptures, but the same people. So the
Yeah.
hatred for idol worshippers are greater in Islamic theology than the hatred towards Jews and Christians.
Yeah.
And that's what you will see also in the Bangladeshi Muslims or other Muslims. They are a bit more friendly towards America and other
Yeah.
countries compared to India.
Yes. Now, I was about to ask you that what does the state in general think, no matter which party is in power, what do the politicians, journalists think of the high popularity of madrasas? Because they probably know, they must know that this is going to be a huge drain on their resources, right? If so much of the population is unemployable and just knows Quran.
They are going through further training after passing the Dawra Hadith. They can study an additional master's course. Some of the madrasa students are learning IT skills and they are doing freelancing as well. So
But
among them, they
but
have
after a lifelong of not learning anything other than the Quran, right?
after that, some people have good IQ, they have high IQ, and they're able to leverage it. But yeah, as you said, that maybe 50-60% of them are coming of no use, and their only job is to pray and call for azan or
Yeah.
teach other people, going
Yeah.
to their homes as tutors. That's their
Yeah.
basic way of livelihood. But now, as
Yeah.
Bangladesh is having a lot of mosques all over Bangladesh, it's easier for them to get a job now, even though the salary is less. And Bangladesh is having more and more madrasa, so they also need more and more teachers. So the graduates are coming in effect as well in that angle.
I see. Okay then, Deepda. So why Hindu homeland and how Hindu homeland? How can it be done?
How can it be done? I don't know, but why the idea of this idea I first heard about in last winter, in Delhi at the Foreign Correspondents Club,
Oh,
when a
okay.
delegation of Bangladeshi Hindus from across the world came down to Delhi. Okay, so there was a press conference. I helped them organize the press conference. At the Foreign Correspondents Club, there were Bangladeshi Hindus from London, from parts of America, from other parts of Europe, and almost a delegation of 10, 12 of them. Okay, and though there were just 5 of them on stage, it was covered by national media. Okay, News 18 covered
Okay.
it, Print covered it, of
Yeah.
course. Other NDTV
Hmm.
covered it.
Hmm.
Some Bengali channels also covered it. So
I see.
there, this idea came about where in the written document that they put out for members of the press in Delhi, that the situation in Bangladesh for Hindus has become such that there is now a crying need for a Hindu homeland, which is basically
Hmm.
take districts like Chittagong, which is Hindu majority. You should remember that those massive protest pictures that you saw, after attacks on Hindus started taking place,
Hmm.
which later was kind of fronted by Chinmoy Krishnadas Brahmachari.
Hmm.
Those massive pictures came from two places. One, of course, was Dhaka, the other was Chittagong. There was this huge
Hmm.
sort of congregation of protesting Hindus, Bangladeshi protesting Hindus, and it was a sight to see that there's so many people on the streets out there to protest for their rights. So the idea was that you curve out Muslim Hindu majority districts from Bangladesh and
Hmm.
you secede. Okay. And they
Hmm.
did not really talk about joining with India, but like stay as a separate entity. Okay.
Hmm.
And with, of course, India's help. And that was one of the things they asked for. Now,
Hmm.
within the delegation, okay, there were people who were a little uncomfortable with that idea, and all of them were Hindus, by the way. Okay, Hindus of Bangladeshi origin.
Hmm.
So they can't, of course, go back home. You can't float an idea like that, like this in a Delhi press conference and then go to Bangladesh. They have carved out successful lives for themselves in foreign lands. But that's an idea that they very strongly put forth. And then in my
Hmm.
discussions with them later, they told me that there have been this idea is not a new one. Of course, it came out so forcefully at that time, but it's an idea that they have toyed with, or people like them have toyed with for a while, and they have also been in touch with people from India,
Hmm.
not common citizenry, but people in high places. Let me just put it that way. So I
Hmm.
think this is an idea that from every once in a while, and especially when since last August, the kind of things that's been happening to Hindus. I think Faiyaz, it's so bad that even I have stopped writing. I think Faiyaz writes more on X than me on this. I mean, the last thing, and it came on my came as a video through my WhatsApp, and it really disturbed me. I mean, there was a rape of a Hindu woman. She was disrobed in front of her husband. The rape was sort of videotaped, as in caught on camera, and then it was circulated. I mean, you don't do things like that. So when incidents like that happen, this idea gets a stronger and stronger push. Now, I
Hmm.
happened to meet some people last month in Delhi who were of Bangladeshi origin. They had also come to Delhi to to talk to whoever they were talking to, and they said pretty much the same thing. So they wanted to meet me, and they said, you have not written about this. So I said, it's an unformed idea. That what are the specifics of it? What exactly will happen? Whose help do you think you will take? Whether it will be, I mean, you can't just see it, right? It has to be. I mean, if it has to be, it has to be sort of more properly formed as an idea. How will you do it? So, but what was interesting to me is that there are people who were willing to put this out as a headline. I
Hmm.
think News 18 picked up this headline. If you check their website, they have the Anindo Banerjee, my bright young colleague. He picked up this headline from that more than an hour long press conference, that there's a cry for a Hindu homeland.
I see.
I have been trying to sort of see whether there is any resonance of that. This side of the
Hmm.
border, that is our side.
Hmm.
But you, of course, you hear it in political speeches, right? You hear it among local BJP leaders and in
Yeah.
Bengal. But what was interesting, like I said, is the fact that they put it out as a vision document, as
Hmm.
part of the vision document, that you need
Yeah.
a long-term solution to the crisis that Hindus face in Bangladesh, and this is one of the solutions.
Hmm.
Because their position was that it's not about no matter who will come to power in Bangladesh right now that Hasina is gone, the last hope has died down. So it's going to be bad from here on. Okay, whether it's a military takeover tomorrow, or some other political party comes to power day after, it's going to be bad for Hindus. So the only way out, and there's what, 2 crores of them. So so only way out is to carve out a Hindu homeland from within Bangladesh.
Now, Deepta, I have to ask you this. Last day I asked you in Bengali. Today I asked Faiyaz in English. Now I'll ask you in English. Why shouldn't or why can't India invade and carve out a land for the Hindus and call it a Hindu homeland? They will just set that place free, liberate a Hindu homeland, and not run it, but liberate that piece of land.
You are asking me why they should do it. I mean, who am I to say, yaar, why they should?
Why aren't they doing it, or why
aren't
can't they do
doing
it? Yeah.
Why can't it's a sovereign country? I mean,
So what? Every goalpost has a goalkeeper. That shouldn't stop us.
see, the point is that when you separated East Pakistan from West Pakistan, there was a large chunk of East Pakistan that wanted it. There was a
Yeah.
popular movement, okay, under Sheikh Mujib. Why is he Bongo Bandhu? Because he was the face
Yeah.
of that. There is history is not black and white. So now there are people who say, oh, there were other leaders who were ignored, but whatever. He was the most popular face. I mean, without Sheikh Mujib, and I tend to in this book, for instance, I'm looking at everybody very critically. But even no matter how much critically I look at Sheikh Mujib, Sheikh Mujib. He was the tallest leader of the time. Okay, he led his people.
Yeah.
Even when he was in jail, he led his people.
Yeah.
Now, most of the country wanted it. Okay. Now, look at what's happening. Chinmay Krishnadas Brahmachari was becoming a leader. I mean, this is step like 10 or 15. But for now,
Yeah.
what was the need of the hour is to make their voice felt. Okay. Within Bangladesh, there had to be a leader. It can be a political leader or spiritual leader or both. Somebody who combined both of these two dimensions. Now, Chinmay Krishnadas Brahmachari is in jail, and I think he's in jail for a slew of charges, murder charge included, which has been slapped on. Excuse me. But the reason he's in jail is because he became such a big leader. Okay, he came out of ISKCON. People sometimes faultily refer to him as ISKCONite. He's an ex-ISKCONite. He came out of ISKCON's fold.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he became this huge mass leader. So without a leader, there is no movement. Okay, so you first need a leader to make their voice heard. Okay,
Right.
to
I get you.
so without that, I mean, so you had a movement, Mukti Jodha, which specifically come back to your question. You had Mukti Jodhas who you trained in India at that time. You had a
Yeah.
leader who had a political vision of a country free from the clutches of West Pakistan. Okay, but here it's an idea right now, a very tantalizing idea, some may say,
Yeah.
but still an idea. I mean, you need a leadership, right? You need an organization structure. There is no political party. Forget a party that will call for secession. There's no political party. Somebody has contacted me yesterday, who claims to have party offices across many districts of Bangladesh right now, but he is it's the party, interestingly, is called BSP, Bangladesh Sanatan.
Yeah. I know
Acha,
them.
Yeah,
acha.
yeah, Bangladesh Sanatan Party. He'll get on a call with me soon, this week sometime. Now he is not getting registration, right? He just
Oh.
wants to. He has played proxy for other political parties in the last 2 elections, but
Acha.
he does not have a political. He has propped up candidates, right?
Okay.
He or his candidates can't fight, but he can of course help somebody win by sort of garnering support for that candidate. Okay, but he can't. It's not registered. You don't even have a registered political party for Hindus by Hindus, right? So how can you talk of a secession movement?
Right.
And for India to do, I don't know whether India wants to, firstly, but even if it were to want to do something like that, there needs to be a concrete plan. There's no plan. It just right now it's just suffering. Just
And
endless.
and UN is not going to do anything.
anything. What is human doing? Yeah, I mean, a rape video was mass circulated inside Bangladesh. It was as horrific as it is. I know. In fact, the guy who circulated it in India is somebody known to me, and he called me and I scolded him. I said, "Why did you do it? I mean, it's a horrific thing to do." He said, "People should know." I mean, I don't agree with him, but there were others also, other excusers who also sort of retweeted it, and but imagine, I mean, there's not a single word from anybody. I think one or two Indian press wrote about it.
Hmm.
It was there for everybody to see. It was I'm right, Faz, right? It was it was retweeted like
Yeah,
it went viral, but
yeah.
no news, yeah, nothing. There was some news saying, "Oh, this has happened," something like this, but there was no news of the no news of the video that came out. There was
Hmm.
a rape, there was a protest. That's it. It was over.
Hmm.
Every
Where's the
criminal
UN?
activity
Where's
is
the
like that.
UN? Yeah.
Hmm. Now,
See, there have been a
yeah,
lot
yeah,
of
gone.
rapes in Bangladesh since the I think in 9 months. I just read a statistic today. In the last 9 months, humongous number of rapes have happened, and they are not of all of Hindu women. Muslim women have been raped. Okay,
Okay.
so it's generally bad for women in Bangladesh currently. But having said that, to do something like this so blatantly, and it's a guy who belongs to a particular political
Hmm.
party.
Hmm.
Where is anybody?
Hmm.
So yeah,
Now,
but
yeah, yeah, gone.
no. So the idea of so every time something like this happens, your places of worship, but a makeshift mandir was demolished right in the heart of Dhaka.
Hmm.
You saw
Hmm.
those images, right? Right in the heart of Dhaka, people came and demolished a mandir. People were crying. Devotees were crying. Where is anybody? Where UN is very far away. There's nothing. So
Hmm.
every time this happens, this idea gets more and more concrete. But you need leadership for that. You need a vision. You need a leadership. You need an organizational structure to sort of carry this through.
Hmm. Now, there's pretty much a consensus in India amongst, I think, all political parties and even academia that UN generally sucks, right? No one really respects or loves UN these days. Then can't we do something with about it? Since entire India seems to be united behind at least this one cause, that UN definitely sucks and they are not a help to anybody. They can't prevent Israelis killing Palestinians, nor can they prevent Bangladeshi majority killing the minority.
You have powerful friends in Delhi. You should tell them, Nirajan.
You,
You should float this idea. No, but jokes
the,
apart, but what I said is important. See, for India also, you can't just unilaterally do something like that. There has to be a indigenous movement that takes more concrete shape and is not just an idea
okay.
that's in a press conference. Okay, I mean, then you can step in. Like I said,
Hmm.
like he gave you the parallel with 1971. In 71, what happened? In 71, also I'll tell you something, and again I'll sort of lean on Faiyaz to correct me. Even for many Hindus in Bangladesh today, I think there's a great love for their country. So it's not necessarily, I'm right, Faz, right? It's not necessarily an idea that will even appeal to Hindus, even when the atrocities are so much.
Hmm.
Great love, because I talked to many of them, right? There's great love. And I have
Hmm.
spoken to them, this idea, and they're very unsure.
Hmm.
So, like,
Absolutely, absolutely.
yeah, they have great love for Bangladesh. Like, I
Many
have
Hindus
asked,
also
like, people come to
participated in the
meet me.
July protest.
Yeah,
Yeah.
participated in the
That's
July
taken to a lot of
protest, saw that even after
patriotic values.
participation in the July protest, they have been targeted just for being Hindus, but they love their country. So
Yeah,
to
Hmm.
say that it would be something that would be accepted by one and all in the Hindu community is not also correct.
Yeah. 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 Uh, Now, Fayaz, shouldn't Bangladesh at least create a humanitarian corridor for Hindus?
yeah. That's a very interesting topic because they are always talking about humanitarian corridor for Rohingya,
Hmm.
and Rohingyas are refugees. So,
Hmm.
but they have citizens like the tribal people, the Chakma, Marma, Shautal, and then the
Hmm.
Hindus, of course, the Christians. And I knew one Jewish family. living in Dhaka, but they fled to Israel. And as per my knowledge, there is no more Jew left in Bangladesh. Some of them have converted to Jehovah's Witness.
Okay.
So whatever minorities that are living right now, including the Shias and Ahmadi, so for them, an autonomous and semi-autonomous region is very necessary and time-bound. But apart from that, just like for the Rohingyas, they're discussing about a humanitarian corridor. It might also be essential for them to have a humanitarian corridor where they can survive the violence and get immediate uh, possible release from there, and take precautions and measures so that they can come back again. Now, as Dada mentioned about the Khilket Durga Mandir that was demolished, the
Hmm.
my house is very near to that, maybe 4 or 5
Okay.
kilometers near to that mandir and the area Khilket. So
Okay.
that entire area, and there is a new area called Boshundhara and 300 feet and everything that's quite popular in Dhaka right now. That
Okay.
entire area was owned by a Hindu family called the Bhawal king.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
And
The
today,
legendary story, Bawal King. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And today they have nothing, and the mandir that was there has been demolished. So they want to maintain no signs of anything. Now, I'll
Hmm.
tell you one example. In Australia,
Hmm.
they had a white colonization. But right now, after Australia has maintained their secular status and everything, Australians themselves are acknowledging that they did a genocide, that their ancestors did
Yeah.
a mistake. They
Yeah.
have signboards everywhere saying that this amount of people died on this day
Hmm.
by white colonizers. They're mentioning it, and the
Yeah.
Aboriginals were killed.
Hmm.
And of course, in Bangladesh, if they want to put up signboards, then the entire country will be full of signboards.
Hmm.
There has been so much atrocities.
Hmm.
And as Dada mentioned, that there has to be a leader. So, they need a leader like Shama Prasad Mukherjee who can, start something. And now the tribal people, they were supposed to have an autonomous region as per the 1996 agreement, but they didn't.
Hmm.
Uh, Not even a semi-autonomous region. It became a military zone.
Hmm.
Now, they may have reacted and they may have fired and they may have gone to a different extent, but what would you do if your region has been taken over by other settlers? They have to
Hmm.
react some way or the other. So
Yeah.
Hmm.
the breach of the 1986 agreement has happened again and again. And then that's where
Hmm.
you have people like Nathan Bomb and the Bomb community. They took up arms against the Bangladesh army over there.
Okay.
So this is very necessary, and the humanitarian corridor can have a lot of advantages, but it also has some disadvantages. For example, then some people can go after Hindus a lot more, and then because they will think that if we go after them, we can grab their land, and they will escape through the corridor.
Hmm.
So it will be a
Yeah.
risky situation for India as well. So
Yes.
there is another alternative that can be done. There is a community land trust. Some of the countries they enlighten it. The community land trust will have a separate land for the community. Even in America, they have for certain communities, like for the Native Americans, they have a community land trust, and they allow them to settle, and they have their own security, and sometimes they help them to preserve their cultures. So if
Hmm.
this can be done as the starting point, then you can one day become an autonomous region, and then you can have your freedom of administration over there.
Hmm.
But as you said, the UN, nobody trusts the UN, but UN
Hmm.
has and still had a lot of opportunities. And
Yeah.
of course, right now, even if there is an election in Bangladesh, and even if BNP comes, then India has the opportunity to have dialogues about having a semi-autonomous region, and to so that even India can help those people rebuild themselves. People who have lost their lands, people who have lost everything, they're living in Bangladesh.
Hmm.
Sometimes they tell us that we had this amount of land, they were grabbed by some leaders, some other people, 1971, post 1971, pre 1971, whatever happened, but they have
Hmm.
lost their lands. Now, these people
Hmm.
can be given, similar to the community land trust, they can give them a place to live.
Hmm.
And of course, if they need investments, if they need help, the UN and other people will be there because they're empowering the minorities. It's not just Hindus, it's the tribal people as well, the Shautal and
Hmm.
others. So it could be a great opportunity for Bangladesh to embrace diversity. But
Hmm.
I'm not too sure because when it comes to attacking the tribal people, or when it comes to army providing a crackdown, it seems like all political parties support it. And if any political party they want to have fame, they can either go after India or they can go after the tribal people.
Yeah.
I
It
see.
kind of unites a lot of people. It
Okay,
it gives you an instant relief for the
I
leaders,
see.
that they have the support
I see.
that they crave for. So that's the issue.
Deepda, I'll have to ask you how to do the humanitarian corridor. How can we think of doing it and stuff? But first, I'll have to pull at the lack of leader thread a little. Um, how are leaders created then? If such dire situations don't give birth to a leader, let's say Chinmay Prabhu was one such leader. Why can't we have more such leaders immediately propping up? And more importantly, in India, the biggest pro-Muslim or Muslim safety, pro-minority leaders aren't really Muslims. Even there are tall Muslim leaders as well, but most of them are Hindu. Why aren't there secular, atheist, liberal, Muktamana leaders as well, who can be significant leaders at this point for Hindus?
See, of course, this point I agree with you. There can be Muslims who within Bangladesh who give leadership to, or
Yeah.
who put forth or who puts together a party which But Army League was that party, right, which spoke for the minorities. But in the absence of Army League, there can be another party who has a very targeted sort of constituency, which is the Hindus.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
necessarily does not have to be a Hindu to give leadership to that
Yes. Yes.
organization or party.
Yeah.
But let's not kid ourselves. No political party in Bangladesh will. This can happen. What I just said. No political party would forget secession idea of districts seceding from Bangladesh and also semi-autonomous zones within Bangladesh. That would be the death of their politics. No political party, old or new, can come up in Bangladesh. The system won't allow it. They won't do it. Existing or new. Okay. Nothing. No humanitarian corridor. No semi-autonomous zones. Definitely not flirting with the idea of secession. It's living in a fool's paradise. No political party will do it. It's the death knell, okay, of their politics in Bangladesh. It had to be, if it's an idea that has to come up, it has to come up like the Mukti Jodha. You have a guerrilla army which trains itself a very strong leader. In fact, not just one leader, because you can have one leader who's in jail, like Chinmay Krishnadas Brahmachari. This idea should form properly. You should have a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 leadership. Okay,
Right.
who necessarily may not even stay within Bangladesh, but it has to be some kind of guerrilla movement, very secretive movement to begin with. Okay, it can't be an overground thought. It absolutely
Right.
cannot be. It can be great for debates and discussions like this one, but it cannot be. No political party will do this. Forget a secession movement, even a semi-autonomous zone within Bangladesh. No political party. We saw. I think it's Faiyaz's research only that, if I'm not wrong, that I was reading from and writing and rewriting. Yeah, it was Faiyaz's research that this bit about the 1986 agreement for the Hill Tract, and he did a very detailed research on that, and I was reading it, and what happened to it? Sheikh Hasina even won international awards, peace awards, for signing that deal. But what, even during her time, but was there peace? There have been sort of time zones of peace or brackets of peace. There have not
Yeah.
been continuous peace. The military just goes in and does whatever. We talk about Hindus in Bangladesh. What they do to the Chakmas and the other tribes, indigenous tribes, is horrible. Their women are sort of just taken away. Their men are killed, made. They're treated like slaves, subhumans. See, Hindus are also, no matter what kind of atrocities they go through, they're also a very vocal community. You get to know these are people you don't even hear from, because there is so much
Yeah.
othering that has happened traditionally.
Yeah.
And language barrier is there as well.
Language
Hmm.
barrier is there as well, and on all the racist slurs, that also
Hmm.
is a problem with India, but even in
Hmm.
Bangladesh
Hmm.
it's there, right?
Yeah.
So nobody talks about that. But in fact, I'm going to write about them in a chapter, not
Hmm.
just talk about Hindus. But the point is that it's horrible, absolutely horrible. Uh,
Hmm.
but coming back to your point about a humanitarian conobos, no human, it has to be a guerrilla movement, very
Seems
well
so.
thought out guerrilla movement. If it
So,
has to, but then again, I said that it's not as if it's we are just flirting with ideas here.
yeah, yeah.
But I'm just saying that I'm not even sure that most of the people in Bangladesh, among Bangladeshi Hindus, are convinced of this ideas, or even whether
Right.
they entertain this thought. I don't think they entertain this thought. Many of them. See, these are where did I first hear of it in this manner? At a press conference in Foreign Correspondents Club by Bangladeshi Hindus who stay in America and UK and other parts of Europe.
Hmm.
Okay. So for them, it's all very well to say this. They'll go back to London and New York and Paris and Geneva. Okay. They're not going to Dhaka. They are
Hmm.
also not the voice. They have, some of them have very good network. Faiz and I know one such gentleman. Fantastic network within the country.
Hmm.
But even in that, if you were to explore that network, right, if you were to ask them,
Hmm.
last month I met this gentleman who had come from Bangladeshi Hindu. And I told him that why are you in Bangladesh? Why don't you're a man of means. Why don't you sort of shift to India, go abroad, do something? So he looked at me and said, Dada, it's my country. Why will I leave? If everybody thinks like that, what will happen to my country? Is it not my country? And I had nothing to say. I can't tell him what to do, right? He said it to my face that Dada, it's my country. It's the country of my forefathers. And he said, I understand that your forefathers chose not to stay in that country. So it's not your country, but it's my country. And it's great you have written a book for us. But I'm here to talk to you, to meet you, to thank you for the book you wrote. And it's great that he mentioned your show because you really promoted it, Neeraj. But he said
Oh,
that, but and especially after the Bengali book came out, the Bengali
I
translation.
see.
Yeah.
Oh.
So he said thank you for that because there's nobody to speak for us. But why will I leave? And that's a sentiment
Hmm.
among many people. There are people who can do so who have properties in Kolkata over the
Hmm.
years, even during Awami League's
Hmm.
time.
Hmm.
Okay, that if it really, really gets bad, they at least have another place to stay.
Yeah.
But they still retain their homes inside Bangladesh. They still stay there. They may come to Kolkata or
Hmm.
other parts of Bengal from time to time, but this their
Hmm.
primary residence is still inside Bangladesh.
Hmm.
So, like I said, in 1971, if you discard people who were in the Jamaat, in the Al Badr army, in sort of who were collaborators of the West Pakistani army, if you discard those people, there was a sizable chunk of people who believed in Sheikh Mujib's vision of a
Hmm.
Bangladesh that would rise over religiosity
Yeah.
for the love of a language and culture and political autonomy, right? You have to
Hmm.
feel it. Hindus, they have to feel it. We can talk about it, but they have to feel it. They have to feel it strongly enough for such a movement, the idea of such a movement to stop being an idea, and there should be some sort of some concrete actionable steps that are taken by some organization that comes up. But I don't see that happening yet. It's very
Hmm.
bad for Hindus in Bangladesh right now, as it is bad for everybody in Bangladesh. I mean, I worry for my friends who happen to be Muslims inside Bangladesh. I'm very happy Fayaz is not there. Okay.
Hmm.
I have a lot of friends. No, really. I have a lot of the way Fayaz talks, and sometimes he says
Hmm.
things even I don't say. Right. So there are
Hmm.
two reasons he says it. Of course, he knows things more deeply than I do. It's his
Oh,
country researched it, but also he is very forthcoming in his truth
Hmm.
telling. Right. I sort
Hmm.
of, but uh, like there is such deep love for their, and this is something I hope some people, and there are people who come to your show not to give me gali, so I hope they're
Hmm.
listening. There is such deep love among many Hindus inside Bangladesh for Bangladesh. It's
Hmm.
amazing.
Hmm.
Okay,
Uh,
they think of it as their country, as
Yeah,
their mother tongue,
despite what they have gone through, their love still
despite
stays.
what they've gone through.
hmm.
They are ready to protect their land.
Yeah,
Hmm.
they're
That's the
literally
real.
ready to put up a land, their god, and they look at India. I mean, a common slur for a Hindu in Bangladesh is you're an Indian agent, you're an Indian, you're a raw agent,
Yeah,
you're a
Hmm.
Malayun.
Hmm.
But you should see some of they should really. I mean, it's sad that they're doubted just for being Hindu, for being. I got a. Let me tell you this: when I was traveling inside Bangladesh and I was doing this book, so there was this very young guy. I won't take his name. He's in Bangladesh, who was
Hmm.
traveling with me, and
Hmm.
he argued with me about Hindutva politics. He said, "I
Okay.
think it's very wrong."
Hmm.
Okay, he said that I don't support fundamentalist Muslims at all because how can I support?
Hmm.
I bear the brunt of their
Yeah.
actions.
Yeah.
But he said, Dada, I don't support Hindutva politics at all. It does not speak for me because it
Hmm.
divides people. I said, okay. I mean, and this is a guy who is assisting me traveling long distance from Dhaka to Noakhali and to Kumilla and to other places
Hmm.
for research for a book called Being Hindu in Bangladesh. It was his observation. So we got to know each
Okay.
other, through the journey, and he said that I don't support Hindutva politics.
I see.
you
Now,
know,
Deepda, yeah,
one
go
thing
ahead, Faiz.
Hindus need Hindu compliant education in Bangladesh because a lot of Bangladeshi Hindus are there far away
Hmm.
from Hindu teachings. And for
Yeah.
example, I have a Hindu friend. I had a colleague
Hmm.
actually. He's my colleague. He told me that he doesn't even know what Manusmriti is, but he's Hindu.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
these kind of people are very common. They grow up with secular education where they learn a little bit about Islam maybe, but they don't know anything about Hinduism from
Hmm.
family, and they work and they
Hmm.
leave, and then they have no. They go to puja and dance, but they don't
Hmm.
learn
Yeah.
anything.
Exactly. Yes.
So
I should
that's
not
the
be. I should not
reality.
be speaking so much about my book, but it's your show, and always end up saying everything. So, but this one point which I had kept for my book, which is a very interesting point. Faiz, I think I discussed this with you. I was speaking to a Bangladeshi, to an American professor who's a Hindu of Bangladeshi origin, and she said something very interesting to me. And Faiz, remind me, we will put this somewhere in the book.
Okay.
She said that educated Hindus in Bangladesh have traditionally, in college, turned towards the leftist parties.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, traditionally through generations, which is also mentioned in Taslima Nasrin's novel Lajja, that
Yeah.
famous, infamous novel Lajja. Okay,
Yeah.
that Shuranjan character, he's into leftist politics. He said
Hmm.
because they are into leftist politics, their idea of religiosity is very diluted.
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so this sense of a Hindu identity has not really developed politically,
Hmm.
right? It's there, but it has not taken a political shape. They have never been able to frame this because they have always believed in a communist ideology, most of them,
Hmm.
Or Awami League version.
or army, or
Yeah.
its army league version.
Hmm.
So they are very left. The Hindu singers, songwriters, intellectuals,
Yeah.
political activists, they're
Yes.
mostly leftists.
Hmm.
Okay, and many of them, like I said, this guy who's not sort of either of these things, I said, but there are educated young Hindu boys. Very few of them are proud Hindus, quote unquote. You know what I mean? Okay,
Hmm.
so they look at it as a human rights violation. They don't view it from the angle of religiosity at all. They look at it as a fellow Bangladeshi attacking them because of their
Yeah.
identity. Okay, they don't frame it as anything else.
True.
Hmm. So Bangladesh's Hindu leftists are leftists who are bad at being guerrillas even. Uh,
No, there's no.
Now,
No. Bangladesh. There has been far left in Bangladesh. Very interestingly, there
hmm.
have been, for instance, in the murder of this MP, Army League MP,
Hmm.
in last year, early last year, before the fall of Hasina, horrific murder. Niranjan, you would remember, as you know,
Yeah.
the MP was chopped into many pieces, and
Yeah.
so one of the guys who was arrested, I'm forgetting his name. He has a very interesting nickname. involved with far left politics.
Okay.
I don't think there are many Hindus who are into far left politics. They're all leftist bhadraloks.
Right.
So in college, they all become leftist bhadraloks. So there is a far left, but there's no militant far left which would aid
Yeah.
them, in this regard.
Yeah. Now, Deepta, mass movements usually happen when see people who have too much to lose, they don't join mass movements, and people who have absolutely nothing to lose, they can't even think of a mass movement because they have to feed themselves. So, are the poorer sections, the lower caste Hindus of Bangladesh, that poor, and therefore they still don't think it's time to take up arms or create some sort of resistance because they are that dispossessed.
I don't think in Bangladesh your dispossession really depends on caste.
Okay.
There are people with so-called lower caste surnames who have done exceptionally well in Bangladesh,
Hmm.
and there are Hindus with so-called upper caste surnames who I see have not done so well.
Okay.
So while there is caste consciousness,
Yeah.
of course,
Hmm.
but there is not necessarily a class divide based on caste anymore in Bangladesh, as far as Hindus
Okay.
are concerned. There
Hmm.
is caste consciousness,
Hmm.
and maybe sort of a upper caste Bangladeshi Hindu still won't give his daughter in marriage to a
Yeah.
lower caste Hindu, maybe,
Yeah. Hmm.
but it has not stopped the social mobility of the lower caste Hindu.
Hmm.
You get what I'm
Uh,
saying? So,
yeah.
so there is there is not this section, this like huge chunk of say lower caste Bangladeshi Hindus who are being attacked,
Hmm.
and since they're lower caste, they're being attacked more. I think that narrative is not true.
No, the people who are lower class who are usually lower caste, right? People who are lower class
Yeah, but
Bangladeshi
in
Hindus.
Bangladesh, it's a little more complex than that. There are a lot of attacks which have been happening on upper caste Hindus who are poor,
Yes.
economically poor.
Hmm.
And there are lower
Right.
caste Hindus who have done very well in Dhaka, in businesses, in civil service, in many other fields, and
Hmm.
shifted to
So the
Dhaka.
like the rich Hindus and poor Hindus, there is a division.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
yeah,
the
the
rich
rich
Hindus
Hindus,
in the
poor
city,
Hindus, yes.
they are
Yes.
normally safe.
Hmm. Hmm. Yes.
But the poor Hindus in the
Hmm.
villages or in if they live in the slums or anywhere, they are at risk.
Hmm. Now, are they at that sweet spot of enough wealth to join a mass movement? The people who are
No,
generally poorer.
no. If you see the kind of attack, the woman who was gang raped inside her house.
Hmm.
If you see the, because I've been reading about the case, if you see the social strata she comes from, they
Hmm.
are mostly shopkeepers, sweet shop owners,
Hmm.
shopkeepers, sort of village tradesmen, people
Hmm.
like that. They are not people you sort of, and there is a lot. Shahidul, for instance, had put up a very interesting post on Facebook long ago, before the fall of Hossain. He said, my appeal to my Bangladeshi sisters and brothers is beware of Bangladeshi Hindu sisters and brothers is beware of Bangladeshi Hindu leaders.
Hmm.
So some of the political leaders in Bangladesh are corrupt to the core, and they
Hmm.
have done nothing for the community. Okay,
Hmm.
so I say this with a lot of sadness. Uh,
Hmm.
they have done zilch for their communities, of their constituencies.
Hmm.
They have just been, in fact, some of them have gone on to sell attacks on Hindus, for their
Okay.
political benefit.
I see. Now we'll get to the audience questions if you all have some more time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
First of all, one of our viewers is asking, is there a policy of Indian government regarding declared killings as genocide? Is there an official stance?
Genocide has a very definitive connotation. We throw that word around very casually these days.
Hmm.
To, these are very spate of targeted attacks, okay, which are happening in at regular intervals.
Hmm.
right? But to call it a genocide would be a little premature.
What about the 2001, let's say massacre at least? Are they officially called massacres by the Indian government?
No, they're not. Attacks.
Okay. So that they remain our friends.
No, because I think government uses, and thankfully our government does so. Government uses terms very after a lot of sort of after a lot of thought. So you don't call it, like, for instance, in 2001, yes, 2001.
Yeah.
If not a genocide, I'll call it a massacre. Definitely. In fact, a
Right.
spate of massacres.
Yes.
2001 when
So
BNP Jamaat came to power.
yeah.
But
Has the
2011,
Indian
if you
government
see,
has the Indian government called
no,
it a
no, no.
massacre?
I don't think they called it massacre. No.
Okay. Wait, Fayaz is back. Can you hear me, Fayaz? Because I can't click on your icon and bring you on the stream. Okay, for some reason you'll have to rejoin. Oh, there you are. Okay, yeah, he's here. Okay, now we are going back to the audience questions. Fayaz is gone again. There's some problem with your camera probably. So, AK Brahma is asking, how much is the US's influence in shaping the Bangladeshi society? Like in the context of their never-ending hatred for India, or always being weary of India's interference, etc. How much is
Because
that of
even
because of?
shaping the Bangladeshi society, I think since Faiz and I are researching it and writing it, there has been a lot of bad US influence in pushing elements within Bangladesh that are inimical to Bangladesh's long-term, that's inimical to the long-term peace and stability of Bangladesh.
Hmm. Next question. Okay, we have a spate of interesting questions right now. Why does this eerily sound like a forecast of Bengal and not what's happened in Bangladesh? Do you agree, Deepta?
Again, these are very easy comparisons.
Hmm.
Situations are very different. I would like to believe that
Hmm.
Bengali Hindus are far more empowered. They are inside. West Bengal is a state, solidly a state in India. So to
Yeah.
compare it, just because there are issues which are communal in nature, as disheartening, as frightening as they are, it is, I think, sort of, in a sense, undermining the pain of Hindus in Bangladesh. I mean, they have no one to turn to.
Right.
India is not giving them visas. Okay,
Yeah.
here you can just go to another state. You can come to
Yeah. Exactly.
like from Murshidabad, you can go to Malda. You can come
Yeah.
to Calcutta. You can go to Bihar.
Yeah.
Where do they go? Not everybody
Yes.
can fly out, right?
Yeah.
India is not giving them visas. Where will they go?
Yeah.
So it's not the same at all. I mean, we should not
Hmm.
compare. I mean, I'm not being
No,
political
but the
correct
question
at
was,
all.
it sounds like
Uh,
a forecast of Bengal.
Forecast, you don't really know. I mean, that would really sort of, won't that doesn't that question undermine sort of the role of all political parties that are in the fray? Like, are they so? No, I want to ask this counter question to the gentleman: that does he think that they are so incompetent that they will let the situation become like Bangladesh?
They do. My audience does.
Okay.
Now, next question is, do people in Bangladesh realize that America is influential in shaping their ideology? Because what's going on in Bangladesh is working in benefit of USA and working negatively for India. Do they realize it, the masses?
No.
Okay. Will West Bengal ever be able to become the Hindu homeland it was meant to be?
No.
Is Bangladesh the next Palestine?
In what sense? Is
Yeah.
Bangladesh the next Palestine? In what sense? Because
I
Palestine
mean,
right
that
now,
kind of a completely broken society where there are no elections, absolutely zero freedom and stuff
there will
in
be
that
enough
sense.
foreign influence to prop up the idea of sanity. Even when beneath it, there will be chaos.
Okay. Um, Rishabh is pointing out that BCCI just cancelled a series with Bangladesh.
Really? That's news.
Hmm. Um, you wait. Where did the other questions go? The ones who have great love for Bangladesh will convert eventually. We have to think. How can India nudge this so-called indigenous movement?
It has to do it smartly, continuously, with a very well thought out plan. If it has to do it,
Okay, now that person is clarifying that her question was in the context of increasing madrasas as a forecast of Bengal. The madrasa economy itself seems to keep Bangladesh pretty independent,
yeah, there's a lot of money flowing in through madrasas.
and
And
there are enough
so,
job openings as well, apparently.
as in the madrasa jobs. So I mean, those
Hmm.
can't. Yeah, but they will create other problems.
Hmm. Right. I think that's the end of the questions, and Fayaz has not been able to return, probably for some internet problems. So thank you, Dandipta. Thank you to
Thank you.
Fayaz also if you're listening. Thank you, Deepta, for coming on the podcast again,
Thank you. Thank you. Always a pleasure.
and hope to have you back soon to discuss
Yes.
other
Yes.
mad
Very soon. I
controversial
hope
stuff.
today I was direct.
Yes. You were pretty direct, and
Yeah.
and looking forward to reading your new book.
Yes. We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
I'll
Thank
do
you,
an
Deepta.
exclusive with you. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
yes,
you.
yes. Great. Thank you, audience. Thank you, guys. See you. Good night.